Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Salebox for the week beginning the 18th of November 2013. My name is TotalBiscuit, rounding up your weekly Steam deals. They are, of course, available over on the Steam homepage until Monday, the 25th of November at 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, at which point they'll be swapped out for some new ones. As always, they have a tendency of messing with these, so by the time this video comes out, there may be one removed, or there may be one added. They have a tendency of doing that, so do bear that in mind when going into this. There are also a couple of repeat deals that I covered very recently. I'm just going to put the links in the description below this video. It makes more sense for me to point you in that direction rather than repeating myself again, like twice in the same month. So, the two games in question are Storm Frontline Nation and Post-Apocalyptic Mayhem. I've got assessments of both in the description below this video. So, without further ado, let's kick it off with Deep Black Reloaded. 75% off, that is $7.49, €7 or $5.24 in Tier 2, and £5.74. This is a big, solid avoid. The only thing that I could say that this game actually has going for it is some pretty impressive art, yeah? Its actual graphical fidelity is pretty good, and it's got a nice selection of effects, as you can probably see in the screenshots, but having also played this, it is one of the most generic third-person shooters. I mean, there's cover underwater, for God's sake. It is like playing a budget Gears of War, but half of the time underwater, which is really not that good at all, I'm afraid. It's horribly repetitive, and aside from the actual graphical fidelity, it really doesn't have much going for it, so I think you can safely avoid this one. Razor 2 Hidden Skies, 75% off, that is $2.49, €2.24, and $1.99. It's okay. It's a reasonable vertical shooter. And, of course, enjoy the fact that half of your screen is going to be taken up by borders as a direct result of it being a vertical shooter. It's got a decent amount of gameplay if that's the kind of thing that you're actually into, but of course it is already a niche market, and there are much better examples of that available on even PC, as it turns out. You might think this is a console-only genre. That is very much not the case. The biggest problem I've got with it is this genre has been around for decades, and Razor 2 doesn't do anything new whatsoever. It's not better than Ikaruga. It's not better than an awful lot of other Japanese shmups, and as a direct result, it's a nice little budget title if you pick it up at $2.50, if this is the only thing that you're actually looking for there. But if this is a genre you're already into, you're probably not going to appreciate this because it doesn't have enough going for it. If it's a genre you're not into but you're interested in, then you should go and pick up some of the older stuff because they're so much better. I have some recommendations for you. One of them is free. It's called Star Gunner. You should go and check that out. It's available on GOG.com. You could pick up Tyrion, which is an absolutely phenomenal game with a soundtrack by Alexander Brandon. Also free and available on GOG.com. Tyrion 2000, go and have a look at it. It's just mind-blowing. You could buy Raptor on GOG.com. Old but fantastic, one of the best vertical scrollers developed by a Western company. Hell, just go and have a look at Xenon 2 Mega Blast. There's so many options for you that don't necessarily have to involve picking this one up. It really is just a time filler because it doesn't do anything particularly well. Star Wolves 3, 75% off, takes it down to $5, €5, and £5. I would love to tell you that I absolutely adore the Star Wolves series, but I don't. It was a very promising idea, but for the most part not all that well executed. The combat in this game is a little bit strange. It's like a mixture of EVE with sort of a party-based RPG and hotkey-based skills, which is okay, but the actual game's storyline is very much lacking. There doesn't seem to be all that much to do. And I base this on my experience of Star Wolves 2. Perhaps Civil War actually improved it somewhat, but strangely enough, there are so few reviews of this game actually available online. It's a very odd story indeed. I personally found my time with Star Wolves 2 to be a little bit dull, I'm afraid, and it seems like most people agree with me. It came out in 2010, and it certainly looks very dated at this point. The concept is really compelling, and maybe that will be enough to actually get you through it. There's this phrase which is only for fans of the genre, and I think that Star Wolves is a great example of that. If you dig the concept in the way that it actually works, then perhaps yes, you will have a good time with it, but I like the concept and just despise the gameplay. Aura Fate of Ages, 75% off. That takes it down to $1.24, €1.24, and £1.12. This game's pretty old. It's almost a decade old. Came out in 2004, and as a direct result, expect 4:3 resolution to the end of time. It's a little like Myst. That's probably the best way that I can actually describe it. And as a result, I bloody well hated it because I absolutely despise Myst and Riven. Sorry, guys, I do. It's not really my thing. The main problem is it did seem to just be a second-rate kind of version involving that. It's mostly point and click. As I said, it's mouse driven, so if you remember the way that you moved around in Myst and Riven, you can think along those lines, and then a bunch of logic puzzles to try and get you through to the next area. Definitely not my kind of thing, and made a little bit worse by the fact that it's got some hidden object elements in it, so it often involves just trying to find what the hell you're supposed to be clicking on in the room as opposed to actually solving anything worthwhile. So I think you can safely give this one a miss, again, unless you're a real fan of the genre and for some reason are desperate for a sort of inferior Myst-like experience. Full Spectrum Warrior 10 Hammers, 75% off, takes it down to $2.49, €2.49, and £1.24. This was a disappointment to me. I actually really liked the original Full Spectrum Warrior. It had some fantastic ideas. It felt like a third-person shooter, but in reality it was a strategy game, and it benefited an awful lot from that. You could do some really great stuff. So when I heard that Full Spectrum Warrior 10 Hammers, the sequel, was coming along, I thought, hey, that's absolutely fantastic. But it didn't really do all that well on PC, and the reason is the console interface. It was obviously designed with a console in mind with the controls, and as a result it's a bloody nightmare to actually control on the PC, but they added a bunch of stuff in there that was clearly designed with a proper PC interface in mind, a lot of complexity to it, and you can barely do anything with it. It's just a nightmare to control, which is unfortunate because they added stuff like multiple teams, they actually added tanks into the game, which is awesome. And personally, I would get the original, but even now, it's getting really dated. This is a game that almost came out a decade ago, one of Pandemic's finest as far as I'm concerned, and a very interesting idea indeed, but I don't know if now is the time to be jumping into it. It's a shame we never saw a real sequel to it. It really is, but hey, Pandemic, along with many other studios, did go under, and you can blame EA for that. Absolutely. World of Zoo, 75% off for $3.74, €2.49, and £1.24, which is very cheap in the UK. Australians will actually be paying slightly less for this one at $2.48. Aside from that, every other game in the list is the same as the US dollar price. Well, this one's a bit kid-friendly, I've got to say. It came out on PC, it also came out on the Wii. But it doesn't mean it's bad. It has a nice little cutesy graphic style, and it's definitely lacking a little bit in the depth department, to say the least. It was obviously aimed at kids, but maybe you happen to be a parent that is watching this show and thinking, oh yeah, it's something for the kid would be pretty good. As much as you might wish that it was a Zoo Tycoon style game, it really isn't. It's more of a virtual pet game with multiple pets. And I can appreciate that. I can appreciate what they're trying to do here. It's obviously not for me because I'm way too old for that crap. But I can certainly understand why some people would like it. It's not a terrible game. It also has a creature editor in it, which is a little bit strange to say the least. And all that really makes me want to do is play Impossible Creatures again and be very sad that there wasn't a real sequel to it. Jade Empire Special Edition, 75% off, that's $3.75, €3.75, and £2.25. Jade Empire is perhaps one of the most overlooked BioWare titles of recent memory, and that's a shame because it's actually really, really good. What I would say is it's a shame they didn't go a little bit further with the combat system. It's in this weird kind of spot where it really wants to be a kung fu spectacle fighter, but at the same time is sort of reined in by the notion that it's still an RPG. This is around, of course, the same kind of time that BioWare was trying to deal with Mass Effect and developing that and saying, is this a third-person shooter? Is this an RPG? Where does it stand in between? Well, you can have a look at Jade Empire and see the sort of proto-nature of that. But it's still fun, and it's got a great storyline. It's still very playable to this day. I would certainly recommend it. However, bear in mind the original PC port wasn't that great, but you can fix that. There's a couple of problems with it. It was locked at 30 FPS. You can fix that with the .ini files. You can just set the clamp FPS value of jadeempire.ini to 0. That will work. And you'll have to make a change to the config files in order to get 1920 by 1080 resolution. As always, I'd recommend pcgamingwiki.com for all the instructions on how to do that kind of stuff. Prime World Defenders, 66% off. That is $5.09. €4.75 in Tier 1, $3.73 in Tier 2, and £4.07 in the UK. It's not a bad tower defense game, and it's a little bit strange that this came out because they also have a game called Prime World, which is kind of Dota-esque-ish. It's a little weird because it's a free-to-play game, and then they somehow tied a tower defense into it for why, I don't even. But the tower defense game isn't too bad. It's got some card mechanics in it, which do make things a little bit random, though not as much as what I initially thought in my WTF is a while ago. So you may wish to have a look at it regardless if you are wanting to get a little bit of tower defense action, because among the selection and perhaps the oversaturation of tower defense that we have on PC right now, this is definitely one of the better ones. Hexodius, 50% off, that's $5, €5, and £3.99. I kind of wish that I could recommend this because it has some interesting ideas. Unfortunately, the core component of the game, which is sort of like a twin-stick shooter, really isn't all that great. The strength of the game was the fact that you moved through these different hexes and there were different events and conditions that would happen as you did it, but the battles that you had to do within that grid, which were just about as generic as you could possibly get, really let the game down. So some strong ideas, but not particularly amazing execution, and as I've said many times before, if you're looking for twin-stick shooters, then there are far better on the market, and you really should, of course, be looking at Renegade Ops 100% of the time when it comes to that one, because Avalanche did a phenomenal job of bringing a fantastic twin-stick shooter to PC. And finally, You Don't Know Jack, which is actually only available in the US. This is something that they've been doing for a while. I don't really know why. It's 75% off at $5. This is the new version of You Don't Know Jack. They actually released, I think, all 8 of the bloody things on Steam and completely covered the new releases section. It's pretty good. I mean, You Don't Know Jack was always a lot of fun back when I was a lot younger, when we actually got to play it there. I believe they only released it in the US because they believed that no one would actually bloody understand it. So I guess I can understand that, but it's a bunch of trivia quizzes with a lot of mini games and all sorts of things like that. It's a huge amount of fun to play in a party. Yeah, and by a party, I mean you've got to actually have people there with you in order to really make this work. The latest You Don't Know Jack does have online play. All of the old ones, which are like from 1995, no. I'm actually really surprised they even still run. A lot of the trivia is US-centric, which I assume is the reason they didn't bring it out anywhere else. That or perhaps some weird licensing stuff going on. But it's a good time. I know it's a little bit weird that I'm recommending a trivia game, but actually You Don't Know Jack has always been fantastic, so this would be that one exception where I say, yeah, you should absolutely get this trivia game. Alright folks, that pretty much wraps me up for the sale box today. Thank you very much for watching, and of course this sale will run until the 25th of November 2013. My name's been TotalBiscuit, and I'll see you next time.